One thing I meant to say with my Donkey Kong video earlier this week is that often Nintendo news follows in sequences where we get a few things during a week. This week we've had not just the Donkey Kong Country Returns update, but now we have received information on Super Mario Bros. Wonder. And while a lot of stuff, like the focus on Rosalina in the new expanded game and the addition of new game share functionality, isn't enormously surprising, there are a few things that did catch my attention. Firstly, I'm mildly surprised that they've dated it already, rather than waiting for example, a February Direct. And if anything, this makes me question far more whether there will actually be a February Direct or if they might wait a little bit longer. I'm also particularly intrigued that they've dated it to the end of March slot, not so much because it's not a very sensible time ahead of the new film, but because it makes less likely any other major title coming out in this quarter. Is it really possible that only the third full quarter of the Switch 2 could have to its name just Nintendo Switch 2 editions of Animal Crossing New Horizon and Super Mario Bros. Wonder, and retail releases of Mario Tennis Fever and Pokemon Pocopia? There is some precedent, see Bonanza and Jamboree TV, for having the Nintendo Switch 2 editions follow a week after a bigger game, so it's certainly plausible that we could see a title on the 19th of March, but generally speaking, Nintendo like to have their 3-week buffers between game releases, and with Pocopia already out in that month, it would be a little bit surprising if they did put a 19th of March game out. It really feels like they consider the Plus games to New Horizon and Wonder, two of their star games to be fair, to be able to hold this line alone. Now, I suspect we might not quite know the entire lineup for the quarter just yet. Rhythm Heaven could shadow drop, Pokemon Champions may do as well, and there may be something else up Nintendo's sleeve, of course. It's even conceivable that Yoshi comes out a little earlier than expected and still makes March, but it does seem a conspicuously quiet start to the year. Ironically to me, this projects confidence more than anything else. I've said before that my expectations are low for the first half of the year, but then I really didn't think they'd have Wonder as their end of the financial year slot, and if they do stick to that being pretty much the only announcement during this period, it is an incredibly quiet first quarter for the calendar year. If they're really this low on big things to announce for the next couple of months, does this mean then they could forego that February Direct? In some respects, doing so might be risky, but then again, with the big Pokemon announcements afoot, with the pressure cooker of hype bound to build almost irrespective of what they do, I wonder if they might try to push a Direct later, as they did do, of course, last year. So in 2025, they did that 1-2 punch at the end of March and the beginning of April, and if they want to move to a situation where they do 2 directs at half-yearly intervals instead of 3 at roughly 4 months apart, this might be a good opportunity to do it. Of course, there are the usual rumours of directs with anniversary content featuring, and while this has to be a baseline expectation since they just have so many anniversaries this year, strategically, I'm still not sure it would be optimal to centre Zelda right now, and of course Pokemon will probably get its own show. All things considered, I still expect a February Direct, but I'm slightly more doubtful than I was previously, especially if they do a series of smaller but still eye-catching announcements around Pokemon Day and Mario Day. As for major games, yet again, I come back to Furukawa's repeated warnings that they will take their time with big games, which seems to be a pre-prepared line, anticipating potential consternation about the lack of big announcements, which, to be fair, so far doesn't really seem to have come. I remain confident that we will get a big tentpole Mario and Pokemon offering this holiday, which should do much to keep up the momentum, and I feel like there's space for a big long-term announcement to settle some nerves. Announcing that Masahiro Sakurai is on Smash would probably be the easiest one, especially if it's the kind of announcement that says, please be patient, as it will be some time. It's the same kind of announcement that Metroid Prime 4 was back in the day, although hopefully far less jinxed than that turned out to be. It's something that just sets the tone for the next few years, but doesn't offer anything in the immediate future. A couple of other general thoughts, though, about the Super Mario Bros. Wonder announcement. Notice the vast number of different characters who are now in Wonder, with Rosalina, the Lumas, and the Koopalings, as well, of course, as a huge number of characters previously, Captain Toad and more. It seems to me like the Mario team has been asked to ensure that there is a deep bench of characters who will likely be the subject of future merchandise, something we've already seen with the Talking Flower, of course. This makes me wonder about the next 3D Mario. In Odyssey, we saw Mario exploring well away from home, but I suspect Nintendo may be keener to have something which features a lot of the familiar characters to a much larger degree. Although, of course, the fact that they have created new characters has allowed people like Rosalina to be the centre of film, so perhaps they also have an interest in creating something that is new to the mythology as well. Now, this is making me think that they may well want to do the same thing with Zelda. Aonuma made a deeply cryptic comment around the launch of Hyrule Warriors Age of Imprisonment that the inspiration of that game may shape future Legend of Zelda games. Now, I don't necessarily take these kinds of comments too seriously, because Aonuma, of course, has a game to sell, and making it seem like Age of Imprisonment is really important, and at least finding a way to gee up conversation around it, is just smart salesmanship apart from anything else. Having said that, one aspect that Hyrule Warriors does really excel in is showcasing an exceedingly broad cast, and while there are a lot of Zelda characters, they tend to have rather small amounts of screen time compared to Link and even Zelda, and are hardly ever going to be playable. Some kind of major multiplayer Zelda title would seem to fit this strategy potentially. Of course, if the Mario character focus is to ride the hype wave of the movie, we don't necessarily know how Nintendo will treat a Zelda movie and whether they will have different priorities in line with the different audience profiles. Perhaps one of the main drivers behind having so many characters is to sell merchandise, and they will take the view that merchandise will be less of a possibility with the broader range of Zelda characters, and so they will look for other ways to profit off the back of the Zelda franchise next year. On other notes, I do love the implementation of the Lumas to support young players, and this seems like a really clever implementation of mouse control mode as well. I can actually imagine very young children enjoying this as a great accessibility feature, and it makes it an ideal game for young families. I think it's significant that, as far as I can tell, Rosalina is going to be effectively paywalled behind the Switch 2 edition. Given the character is likely to explode in popularity pretty soon as a result of the film, I suspect that it will be a very effective deployment of Festa power to encourage doubting families to commit to the upgrade to Switch 2. Also, we have yet more amiibo, and they're pretty interesting. Elephant Mario feels kind of obvious, although I don't know how I feel about him being in the pipe, but Captain Toad and the Talking Flower is a strange double act. Of note, a significant figure behind the original Captain Toad game on Wii U, Koichi Hayashida, is now working with the 2D Mario group EPD10 and was a key figure behind Wonder, so I suspect there may be more interest to push this character into the spotlight going forward, even on the EPD10 and the 2D side of gaming. I guess it's good cross-advertising for Captain Toad's game, which did get a free graphical update around the Switch 2's launch, and they obviously feel like this is a character with potential to sell in the movie window. All things considered, I have to say that Meet Up in Bellabelle Park seems like a bit of a curate's egg with lots of different modes, but the original game is amazing, and more of it is certainly something that I would get excited about. In recent times, I've had, frankly, far less time to play games, and with the GameCube Classics and game updates, I really can't keep up at the moment, especially since some of these games are old enough that I'm able to enjoy them as new. I was particularly delighted to revisit Pikmin 4 after quite a while away, and yet again being bowled over by just how brilliant that game is. Anyway, that's all for now. I'm grateful you're here, and I will look forward to seeing you next time for another Nintendo Forecast.